Okay, in this video, of course, we're going to be going over Revelations chapter 13 in this part 1. In part 2, we're going to go over Daniel chapter 2, showing you how they're both dealing with the same thing. They're dealing with the rise of something, and one is dealing with the fall of something. Keep watching. Okay, welcome back to another video. If you're new to my channel, consider subscribing. What I go over, of course, is esoteric and exoteric research in retrospect to how it influences you and how by being on a more pious lifestyle, how that can help you in your soul journey on obtaining the mysteries of the light in a better way. Also, I want to mention that I have gone ahead and invested into the website for you, of course. I'm working on a course where I can go in a deeper way, of course. Typically, you get the surface storyline whenever you're dealing with information, but I want to kind of create a course, and I have been working on that, where I'm going to be able to go into more of the deeper mysteries for you, and I'll explain more about that in future videos, okay? But like I was saying in the introduction, what I'm going to be going over in this particular video is Revelations chapter 13. And this is going to be part 1. So part 1, I'm going to be dealing with the rise, okay, how you can rise. And then in part 2, we're going to show you how the fall took place. So then once you precept these two videos together, then you'll be able to be better on your path of attainment and making sure that these things do not happen again, of course, and you can establish that kingdom that will never be destroyed, okay? So let's read Revelation chapter 13. So it says, "Then I stood on the sand of the sea, and I saw a beast rising up out of the sea, having 7 heads and 10 horns, and on his heads, it says here, on his horns, 10 crowns, and on his heads a blasphemous name." Okay, so let's read that one more time. It says, "Then I stood on the sand of the sea, and I saw a beast rising up out of the sea, having 7 heads and 10 horns, and on his horns 10 crowns, and on his heads a blasphemous name." A blasphemous name to who? Okay, so typically in dogmas and in creeds, of course, it causes you to kind of get polarized to where you can only see something through the vision that someone else has prepared for you, of course. But in these particular videos, we want you to take those goggles off, of course, and kind of see it from a different way, okay? So in this particular video, we want to look at the beast as being you. Okay, we want to look at the beast as being you. So you'll see, and you've probably noticed this in some of the videos, how I deal with the lower self as being the more beastly style form that you have to deliver. Remember, it says you have to deliver your creature. Okay, so let's look at the beast as being you, and let's kind of in this video show you how you can rise that beast up from the sea. So we'll say the sea is the lower self. Remember how it talks about you being sent into Egypt again with ships, okay, with ships. So let's look at the lower self as being where you're needing to rise up. Okay, now let's talk about how we can do that. So here it says you have 7 heads. Now I did do a video talking about the 7 churches and how churches actually means disc, okay, and how those 7 disc or heads are actually within you as you're rising up from within. Then you have those 7 heads, okay? So then it says, and 10 horns, and 10 horns, okay? So let's look at the 10 horns as being the 10 entry points of the body, the 10 entry points of the body. Now I did do a video obviously on talking about how the civilization of deception tries to control you through these entry points, of course. So in this video, of course, and I'll link that underneath the like button in the description area, but in this particular video we want to kind of identify what these particular horns are, and they're 10 in number. So let's look at all of the entry points of the body here, and we'll put them up on the screen for you. So you have the eyes as being 2 entry points. You have the, what do you have? You have the ears as being 2 entry points. You have the nostrils as being 2 entry points. So where are we at now? We're at 6. You have the mouth as being 7. That's an entry point. You have the your areas, your private areas, as being entry points, the front and the back. Okay, now we're at 9. And then you have the pores of the skin as being number 10. So those are the 10 entry points of the body. 10 entry points of the body. So if you're adhering to some divine formulas that shows you how to not be code convoluted and helps you on your path of attainment, then that means that you are developing crowns for each one of those entry points. And remember, inside of this book that we've been taught to call the Bible, in I think it's Luke, where it talks about that Scripture is the law of Moses, the prophets, and the Psalms. So in those particular books, once you study them in spirit and in truth, you'll start to understand and see that it's actually showing you how to gain the crown for each one of those entry points. Okay, so guard your eyes and ears. Now you have those crowns if you're making sure that you're not investing into ideas that fall. Okay, ideas that fall. So then you guard your eyes and ears against the blasphemous things of this world. Okay, the blasphemous things of this world. Then you're gaining the crown of your mouth by not consuming the things that are detrimental to your evolutionary growth and consciousness expansion and so forth. So 10 crowns are the 10 entry points of the body. That's what we mean when we talk about DNA hygiene, okay? Is basically gaining the crowns for those 10 entry points. So then we have this beast rising up out of the sea. Now we have you rising up through each of your disc that are within you. So now you're gaining your 7 heads, and then you have the crowns on those horns. And then you have a blasphemous name according to the civilization of deception. That's blasphemous to them. Obviously, that to them you're playing on the wrong team if you are trying to do what we're going to explain in this particular video. So in line 2, it says, "Now the beast which I saw was like a leopard. His feet were like the feet of a bear, his mouth like the mouth of a lion." It says the dragon gave him his power, okay, his throne and great authority. And I saw one of his heads as if it had been mortally wounded. Mortally wounded. So then you go all the way back to the book of Genesis, where it talks about the serpent and so forth, and dealing with the bruising of the head, dealing with the bruising of the head. It says, "And his deadly wound was healed," meaning you're shaking off the ignorance, okay? "And all the world marveled and followed the beast." So it talks about how Satan follows the footsteps of the wise, because the goal of the world is to get you to come back down. And we'll go over that in our part 2, dealing with the book of Daniel. So the goal is to get you to come back down off of that throne where you have great authority. Okay, so let's keep going here. It says in line 4, "So they worshiped the dragon who gave authority to the beast, and they worshiped the beast, saying, 'Who is like the beast, who is able to make war with him?'" Because they're coming in various different directions, of course, trying to bring you down and cast you out of heaven, the higher regions of yourself, which had become vacant because those lands had fallen and become the habitation of what? Devils, unclean spirits, hated birds, hateful birds, and detestable beasts. Okay, and detestable beasts. In order to have a detestable beast, that means you have to have one that's not, and so on. I hope that makes sense to you. So then it goes on to say in line 5, "And he was given a mouth speaking great things and blasphemies." Obviously, it's blasphemies to the world, because the mouth is the sword. Okay, the mouth is the sword. And when it says that they worship the dragon, obviously they need that substance, okay? And that's the form of worship. It says, "And he was given authority to continue for 42 months. Then he opened his mouth in blasphemy against God, to blaspheme his name, his tabernacle, and those that dwell in heaven." So you have to remember that the earth has its heavens. Okay, the earth has its heavens. And then you have the heavens of the semi-divine spheres, and then you have the heavens of the divine spheres. So these particular regions, of course, that had become the dwelling of these particular things that are spoken about in Revelations 18, obviously, when someone is writing, then we have to be able to look at this properly, so we can say, okay, well, we can't assume that it's only one heaven based on what's written, and we can't assume that those that are in those lower heavens are the ones that you need to be giving credence to. Does that make sense? So then it goes on to say, it was granted to him to make war with the saints and to overcome them, and authority was given him over every tribe, tongue, and nation. Over every tribe, tongue, and nation. All who dwell on the earth will worship him, whose names have not been written in the book of the Lamb, slain from the foundation of the world. If anyone has an ear, let him hear. He who leads into captivity shall go into captivity. He who kills with the sword must be killed with the sword. Here is the patience and the faith of the saints. Then it goes on to say, then I saw another beast coming up out of the earth, and he had two horns like a lamb. Okay, like a lamb. And spoke like a dragon. And he exercises all the authority of the first beast in his presence, and causes the earth and those who dwell in it to worship the first beast, whose deadly wound was healed. So obviously the way that a lot of this information has been written is kind of connecting various different information into one chapter, to where if you read it from start to finish, then you say, okay, well, everything does kind of make sense what you were saying when you was reading the first part. But when we skip down here to line 15 and it talks about an image that was set up as the beast, then it looks like it kind of goes into a different direction. Okay, it goes. So we have to look at this as being two ends of something. So you have one end going one direction, one end going in another direction. And that's kind of how this information has been put together, to where depending on whatever it is that you are seeking after, then that's the interpretation that possibly you might receive from whatever it is that you're studying. So it's set up in a way in which you can go the wrong way if you are not seeking this information out in spirit and in truth. So what we want to primarily deal with in this particular video is the first portion, kind of connecting that up with these particular 7 heads and these 10 crowns as being what you have the ability to gain access back to as you're rising from within. And then this one that that's like a lamb is something that you can give birth to. If you get what I'm saying, something that you can give birth to that will go out and accomplish the things that it needs to accomplish. And it is doing it in the presence of you. Okay, it's doing it in the presence of you. So that's what I wanted to bring out in this particular video. I wanted to give you another way of looking at the first portion of Revelation chapter 13, how you can actually be that which comes up out of the sea, and you are basically gaining back your crowns and gaining back your rightful position in a place that had fallen and had become the habitations of something else. And those something else's have been kind of ruling over you, and they have been kind of riding on you and controlling you, because they're controlling you through your senses and your entry points and so forth. So then as you are shaking off the ignorance, of course, and you are gaining those crowns back and placing them on your horns, which is your 10 entry points to your body, then that's how you can get back to the position that is rightfully yours. And then you can start working on gaining the higher crowns and so forth, all dealing with that which is within you. Okay, so if you have any questions or comments about this video, I didn't want to go into detail on it. I just want to give you some study material to look at. Hopefully you rewind the video, play it back, and then also go and study this for yourself and see what you came up with, and then we can have a dialogue about it underneath the like button for you, and I'll see you in the next video.